greatest spectacle in racing. This is the Indianapolis 500.
Get ready, green, 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 green.
Scott McLaughlin in the yellow submarine leads the field to green. Will Power is on the outside.
Look back though at Santino Ferrucci. It's Stars and Stripes goes right to P4. Ferrucci's on the hunt with the three Penske's leading.
Further back, I think the blue and orange car of Scott Dixon. Oh, we got a crash at the back.
That's Marcus Ericsson. Around goes Pietro Fittipaldi.
And I believe is that Catherine?
Tom
66.
Blomqvist, the Meyer Shank Racing rookie. There's Ericsson, car destroyed, banging the steering wheel. His Indy 500 probably over.
We are going racing. Scott McLaughlin and the Pennzoil Chevy at the front of the field. There's moves happening. There's passes being made. Callum Eilot's in trouble. He's being swapped. It's Kyle Larson, and there's contact with Ryan Hunter-Reay.
Hunter-Reay with the hip check to Larson. Something went horribly wrong for Kyle Larson on the restart.
Look at the front too. Oh, there's somebody going from the fringe of the grass.
I think it's Kirkwood.
Kyle Kirkwood, and around the outside goes Colton Herter. The Gamebridge Honda sweeps around the outside of the championship leader, Alex Palou.
Oh, and we've got more trouble. Catherine Legg.
Catherine Legg, the only...
Oh, just smoke.
So it's Stingray Rob for AJ Foyt Racing, who is going to bring this field back to green. Connor Daly is the second car. Then Christian Lundgaard in the Hy-Vee Honda. Look out as they all go into turn one. Ferrucci around the outside. He rounds up Will Power in that Verizon Chevy. Look at the Stars and Stripes, center of your screen. Ferrucci's on the move.
Great move from Felix on board now with Pato Award. That's Palou in front, and Linus Lundqvist in the wall. The caution is out.
It's another rookie. Connor Daly, Indiana's own, leads this field back to green for Dreyer Reinbold Cusick Motorsport, but Stingray Rob comes, and here comes McLaughlin and Santino Ferrucci, the yellow submarine to the front.
Stingray Rob, actually. The two cars look similar. Look at Herta making a move on Newgard really late into turn one.
Strategist, there's a caution on the track.
Caution's out. What's it for? Oh, it's Felix Rosenqvist. It's another Honda. Back at Indy. Back under racing. Ferrucci's pulled out.
Here we go. Four wide again on the front stretch. Up front, Daly Rob, but Scott McLaughlin says, this is my corner.
And how cool is this to see?
Oh
no, a big crash, and it's Colton Herter. Herter and the Gamebridge Honda is out. Here we go, back racing at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. Rinus VeeKay is at the front of the field. He's on a different strategy. And around goes Christian Lundgaard, sweeping right around in the Hy-Vee Honda. But look at Joseph Newgarden.
How about
that yellow
Ferrucci?
and red machine.
Yellow.
Caution again. Oh, it's Ryan Hunter-Reay.
Broken steering arm on the right or the left front.
And it's the defending winner who will bring this field to green, Joseph Newgarden and Scott McLaughlin. They're side by side over the yard of bricks, heading into turn one. And it's going to be the yellow submarine that takes the lead on the restart. McLaughlin back to the front.
Ferrucci on the outside of Rossi as well. We got cars high. We got a spin.
Andretti, Marco Andretti.
Oh,
just
Andretti
the
Global.
Let's go. Green flag flies here in Indy.
Brilliant jump for Scotty Mack. Watch those two lime green cars. They've been going at it. Rasmussen and Canapino.
Larson on the inside of Palou. And Palou is forced up high. Here comes Kyle Larson. Here comes Augustine Canapino.
Oh, big lockup from Kyle Larson way past the cone there.
This will be tight, Townsend, to make it on one more stop. And there you go. Kyle Larson does indeed get a penalty. You heard Brian Campy say it. He will have to come down pit road. And that's one of the things that he was worried about, is how he would handle pit road. He's going to have to do a drive-through for speeding, Kevin.
Look at this. Look at this. It's a drag race, but the power and the advantage is going to go to Rossi. Rossi has got McLaughlin. Palou gets by Ferrucci. It's Rasmussen and Newgarden. Whoa! affected his chances today. He's just gone a lap down as Dixon goes by. Pato O'Ward, is that the pass for the lead and the win?
Guys, Scott Dixon has so much gas. Oh, yellow out.
Big one for Willpower. It's over for the Verizon Chevy. Dixon will lead Pato O'Ward and teammate Alexander Rossi back to green. Here comes Pato up the inside and Rossi on the outside.
3 into 1 doesn't work. Dixon falls, but 3 behind him. Joseph Newgarden up high around VK and Palou. We got a car up high, but keeps it out of the wall. But we do see cars starting to peel off. Newgarden, McLaughlin, and I believe that's Connor Daly coming in.
Dixon and O'Ward, there they are in the short chute. This is the battle for the win of the Indy 500.
Watch over here, coming out, Dixon, but the others are at speed.
Rossi gets a little bit of a toe off O'Ward. Both him and Newgarden now going side by side. Newgarden uses the pick on the outside. Dixon getting up to speed. Joseph has momentum. Will he get him on the front straight?
Newgarden has a ton of momentum. Dixon still trying to accelerate. They'll catch each other at the end of the front stretch.
Both of these men are Indianapolis 500 winners, but here comes Newgarden, blasting up the inside of Dixon.
Here it comes.
There has never been a Mexican driver win the Indianapolis 500. Maybe that time is now. With one more lap to go, Pato goes to the lead. Ward tries to break the draft. Newgarden's like, I've been in this situation before. Joseph Newgarden around the outside of Pato O'Ward. This is mind-blowing. Joseph Newgarden had to wait 12 times to win it, and now he's going to do it back-to-back. Joseph Newgarden is a 2-time Indy 500 winner. Oh, my goodness.
That was a true battle. The last 5 laps between this man and Pato O'Ward.
He didn't have his regular strategist or his team president on the box. He didn't have 2 members of his engineering team. And he said, we are surrounded by good people. We can still do this. And he has. They have.
Joseph Newgarden climbs out as now a 2-time winner of the Indianapolis 500.
Up next, it's the Chevrolet Detroit Grand Prix, Sunday, June 2nd. Watch it at noon on USA Network.
Welcome to the Push to Pass podcast. I am Derek Vance, and joining me as usual here on this Tuesday night is Josh Roberts. And Josh, we have a lot to cover, a lot to discuss, and a lot to analyze here as we finally were able, after a 4-hour rain delay, to get the running of the Indianapolis 500, the 108th Indianapolis 500 underway. Again, like I said, a lot to discuss. So we're going to be joined here in a few minutes by Tony Donohue, friend of the show as well. But Josh, before we get to that, curious your thoughts. I know you were on the outside, literally the outside, looking in on this race on Sunday. Curious to get your thoughts before Tony joins us.
One hell of a race, I gotta say. The drivers were resilient, like you said, over a 4-hour rain delay. I know that that had to have been hard for the drivers just to negotiate and be patient and get ready for the race. But it was one hell of a race. I got to say, the ending was just about as good as last year's ending, in my opinion.
And someone else that I think that's going to have a strong opinion about this, as you see, has joined us, Tony Donohue. Tony, I know the avid IndyCar fan in you. Before we get into the meat and potatoes of what took place this past Sunday, what we witnessed, Josh was just alluding to how great a race this was, and I share the same sentiments. But you, being a veteran of the Speedway, been there a little more than we have. Curious to get your thoughts on what took place there on Sunday.
Yeah, what's up, guys? Thanks for having me. Yeah, I thought it was one of those old school classic type races that's going to go down in history as one of the best. I mean, you had the war of attrition. We haven't seen over the last couple of years engine problems. Honda has had engine problems all month long that continued to a couple drivers on Sunday. It was kind of a crash fest there early on with the lap 1 incident with Pietro Fittipaldi, Tom Blomqvist, and Marcus Ericsson. I saw a couple other drivers into the wall throughout the race. Colton Herta comes to mind as well, Marco Andretti. But yeah, I thought it was a war of attrition, and it was a battle to the end with three incredible drivers: Joseph Newgarden, Alexander Rossi, Pato O'Ward with Scott Dixon lurking, Alex Palou, who had a great day. You kind of had the split strategy midway through the race when Stingray Robb and Connor Daly were up there leading, and Christian Lundgaard was leading some laps. So, yeah, if you weren't entertained by that one, I'm not sure. Formula One must be your thing, where you don't like passing and you don't like anything to be exciting or fun in your life.
Yeah, you brought up a great point, first and foremost, and I have 5 takeaways that I have, and I'll go over those, and I'm curious to hear both of your opinions on that. But you got to commend Scott Dixon, obviously, for what he did. You know, you talked about a different strategy. You know, he was able to maneuver his way through the field there, and you know, if he could have had a bounce or two go his way, he really could have won this. But you know, as it does happen to Scott Dixon, he got Dixon, and unfortunately wasn't able to pull it off. And then also too, I know you got to be impressed with what Connor Daly did there as well. I know him being a local guy and all of that, and I know that's in one of my takeaways as well. But curious, first, Scott Dixon, your guys' thoughts, and then the great job that Connor Daly did. You know, kudos to really all of that Dreyer, Reinbold, and Cusack Motorsports team.
Yeah, I think with both Dixon and Palou, you know, nobody's looking at it on Sunday, but we may look back towards the end of the year and say that was the day that either Scott Dixon or Alex Palou really took over the championship, right? Because Alex Palou now has 24 straight top 10 finishes. He started 19th. Scott Dixon was 21st. And sometimes you don't have a race-winning car, and you can play the strategy correct and sometimes win, as we've seen Scott Dixon do so many times. But just have a max points day, and that's certainly what we saw out of Palou and Dixon. As far as Connor Daly goes, it just seems like, you know, the strategy card kind of falls into his hand. It's exciting when he's up there leading. I think that he had been chomping at the bits to get in that Dreyer Reinbold racing car. Don Cusick told me on Sunday morning they're excited about both cars. I think Ryan Hunter-Reay had a fast car at times, just couldn't get out of traffic, and then obviously got pinched by Scott Dixon. Not sure how that wasn't a penalty, but you know, it's kind of like the old adjective in sports, right? Basketball or baseball. You know, if you get a superstar up to the plate and, you know, there's an outside corner call, the superstar is going to probably get a ball. As a rookie or a second-year player coming up, that might be strike 3. So I was very impressed by Connor Daly. Very impressed that and it's difficult. It's very difficult to contend for an Indianapolis 500 one as a one-off team. They've done that the last several years. I believe it's 4 straight years that Dreyer Reinbold card has finished in the top 10. Remember last year, Ryan Hunter-Reay was leading on a different strategy, obviously, at lap 192. Didn't come away with the win, finished 8th, but big day for Connor Daly. And again, yeah, just impressed by what Scott Dixon and Alex Palou did, because look, it's so easy to get caught up in somebody else's mess. We saw that with Marcus Ericsson starting in the back. It's easy to make a mistake when you got a good car like Will Power did, like Colton Herta did, and to not get caught up in anything and have a pretty clean day for the most part. You know, you look up and it's like, oh, Alex Palou's 7th. Oh, well, you look up, Alex Palou finishes 5th. And, you know, that's a major points day for him.
Most definitely. And if you remember last year, this was about the time when Alex Palou started to run away with the title. You know, he would go on to win the next week in Detroit and win a couple more times that week. So that last year, sorry. And so this could be Alex, like you said, could be Alex Palou's jumping off point. Scott Dixon, the wily old veteran, being up there and just being still competing with these 20-something-year-olds that are out there, and he's out there showing them how to consistently consistently be in the top 10, no matter where he starts. Connor Daly, how can you say anything bad about the hometown boy? He's led the race now a couple times, and you're always. I know all of Indiana was rooting for him, and it was just a great race for all three of those.
Yeah, I think you both are absolutely right, and hopefully, we'll be able to see Connor next year, possibly with Dreyer Reinbold or Cusick Motorsports or somebody else, and obviously, Scott Dixon's going to be at Chip Ganassi until he doesn't want a job anymore. But my 5 ways that I want to talk about, and I'm curious again to hear both of your opinions on these. The first one that I have has to do with the TV ratings, and I probably should have put TV ratings and the way that IMS handled this whole storm situation, because I think major kudos before we get into this has to be given to Doug Bowles and his staff. I know, Tony, you were up there in the media center. Doug Bowles kept everyone informed and up to date as to what was going on. Obviously they were in a no-lose situation. A no-win situation, in my opinion. And anybody can ridicule them, how they handled this one way or the other. But in my eyes, obviously there's no book to the way to handle a situation like this. And I thought, Doug and his staff did everything possible to not only keep the race in its entirety, but to keep the spectators there safe as well. And speaking of spectators, obviously we got some numbers out today of what the viewership looked like, and I think IndyCar hit this out of the park. According to NBC Sports, the Indianapolis 500 on Sunday averaged 5.34 million viewers on both the NBC network channel, and then also their streaming service, Peacock, as well. Now, that is a 8% jump from 2023, where it was 4.9 million, and then a 10% jump from 2022 with 4.8 million. And then also it came to our surprise, I think many of us, that IndyCar and NBC came to an agreement to allow the local blackout to be lifted as well. I know all of us definitely have an opinion on that. Mine is, I think it should go away, because I don't think it's going to affect the attendance, which I think that was a plus to 345,000. I believe as of Friday. I know they had some more tickets left, and then that's 15,000 attendees up from last year. So that was my first 2 takeaways, combined with the lift of the TV blackout, and the way the IMS staff handled the rain delay. Kind of curious to hear both of your thoughts on that.
Yeah, I think you start early in the day and you start looking ahead to, okay, it looks like right around 12:15, 12:30, we're going to have rain. And I think the rain came right at like 12:22, which is about the time I think drivers, start your engines was probably supposed to occur. They did a great job of kind of backtracking and make sure everybody was out of the bleachers at 11:15 a.m. Eastern time to make sure that everybody was clear, err on the side of caution. Because, look, this is a track that last year had to give a car to a woman that had a tire land on her hood. They somebody sued them for a broken pair of sunglasses from a piece of debris that they paid out. So yeah, people are so happy these days, and they want to try to get that extra dollar. With that being said, look, dude, I didn't mind the 440 green flag. I thought it was awesome. I thought the cars looked great when the sun was setting. And obviously made for a huge number kind of going into prime time there on Sunday evening. Everybody was maybe settling down, getting off their boats, if that's what they were doing, enjoying their Memorial Day weekend. And to see a battle like that, I think that just added to it. So it was awesome that the blackout was lifted, because I thought that they should have done that anyway originally, especially in a TV contract year. And it looks like Fox is kind of the front runner to take over IndyCar. That would have been a huge selling point. And then you look at what could have been. Let's say it did rain throughout the evening. They did not get that race in. you would have went from that 6 million rating towards the end of the race on NBC in a battle to being, the checkered flag probably flying yesterday at 3 p.m. on USA Network because NBC was carrying the French Open. So that quote-unquote window over Terre Haute that allowed for about 4.5 hours to get the track dry and then to go green, I think was massive, because if that thing would have ended up on USA Network on Monday, I would have, whatever NBC bid, I would not have allowed them to even ever come back at the end of the year. So, I thought everybody did great. I mean, look, Doug Bowles is great. He's so good at the Speedway. He's so good to everybody. He's got time for everybody, and obviously a really busy month. But I thought that they planned and executed everything perfectly. Maybe not the concession stands, but look, I got a free hot dog out of it because the system had gone down and they couldn't take cash, and so we did a little $10 donation to whatever little league she was working on. But I had a hot dog and a Pepsi that I didn't have to pay for, but ended up giving her some money anyway.
Definitely, I'll second that. Hey, Doug Bowles did a fantastic job. I was out by the snake pit, and they were probably about an hour before the storm was supposed to hit. They were getting all the people out of the snake pit, getting them into shelter. Which there's some shelters, in the tunnels. A lot of people were sitting in the tunnels in different places, but everybody at IMS did a fantastic job. Now afterwards, I don't know if either of you got stuck. Actually, I know Derek got stuck in the traffic jam, but that traffic jam, somebody's got to be able to fix the outbound traffic somehow. But on the ratings, I do think the blackout helped. I also think that it being later on in the day, maybe on the West Coast, may have helped, because like you said, if we were start your engines at 12:40 our time, that would have been about either 8 or 9 West Coast time, and some people are just wake up. So the blackout needs to go away. You're always going to have people showing up. Yes, you may have some grandstand seats that aren't sold, but that has nothing to do with the blackout. That just has to do with sometimes you can't get over 350,000 people to buy tickets. So I think all in all, Sunday was a big success, and it was interesting hearing you say that they're possibly going to Fox, and I think that could be a fantastic thing for IndyCar, because I think Fox could possibly do a much better job than NBC does in broadcast and in advertising races outside of the 500. They'll advertise the hell out of the 500, but it seems like when we get to other races, they're not interested.
Yeah, a couple of points I want to make to that. One, I know a lot of people got stuck in traffic on the way out, but I looked at it like this. Everybody's always wanted the night race at IMS, and unfortunately, with curfew being 11 o'clock at night and not wanting to put 70,000 if it's the Brickyard, or 300,000 if it's the Indianapolis 500 out into the streets of 30th Street and out to 465, but maybe that was a little bit of an impromptu practice on, like, okay, look, what happens if we do run the Brickyard on a Saturday night and we run it from 7 until 10 p.m. and we put lights up here and it finishes finishes under the lights in the dark. Obviously, if it's the Brickyard in July, it's probably not going to be dark till 9:30. But what would that look like? What safety measures would we have to take? Because I still think, not to change the subject too hard here, but I still think having the Brickyard 400 during the day here at IMS may not be the best racing, but if you throw it up at night there, you're going to get a good crowd this year, because it's obviously returning to the Oval and it's the 30th anniversary of 1994. But next year, when people realize, it's might not be a very good race and it's 92 degrees outside, why not move this thing to Saturday, almost adopting what Daytona did 20, 30 years ago, moving the Coke or the Pepsi 400 at the time from day to night.
All very good points. I would love to see a night race there, but I'm not obviously holding my breath on it. Hopefully it comes to fruition. But Tony, I think you're spot on. But some of the non-forward thinkers let's say at the track, won't do that. But moving on, next point here, and I figured you guys probably think that this should be lower down the list, but I think I have some more that are more important. The job Kyle Larson did. Obviously, he was disappointed with not being able to run the NASCAR race due to that being called with halfway. But the job he did here on Sunday, I think, is admirable. To be in that car, the time that he got in there, the adjustments that he made, and if it wasn't for a few mistakes, he could potentially be in contention to win. I love hearing the fact that he keeps repeating that he wants to be back here next year. I know I mentioned to somebody that if Kyle Larson does decide to come back here next year, and the experience that he got this year, it would be tough not to have him one of the favorites to win the 500 next year. But we'll have to wait and see if he's able to do that. But yes, I would love to see Kyle Larson back here at the 500. I know he has a passion for racing. It burns, and just being able to maybe try to do the double again, having a little bit of experience now. I think that's what bit him in the backside on Sunday. But some of the mistakes he made, veterans make too. But just that passion and that fire Kyle Larson has, I think would make him a great Indy champion, possibly in the upcoming future.
Yeah, I think what I took the most out of Kyle Larson was, look, just finish 500 miles. I think that was the biggest thing. It's how your car on lap 190 is not the same as it is at lap 90. So just kind of taking that all in, you got to have 5-6 perfect pit stops. Those in and out laps are critical, as we know in the pits. What impressed me the most about Kyle, which was not unexpected, I kind of knew this going in, but he embraced everything. He talked to everybody. Everybody in the media got a chance to talk to him, whether it's in a bullpen session or walking through the pits. He signed a bunch of autographs. He was a great ambassador of not only NASCAR, but also the Indianapolis 500. He said all the right things. I want to be here. This is where I want to be. I don't want to leave. It's where I want to be. And it spoke volumes when the rain delay came that, hey, I want to be here. I'm going to stay here. And hopefully NASCAR grants him that waiver and allows him to come back and allows him to be in the championship playoff rounds. But I mean, I go back to the Tuesday after qualify, or last Tuesday, a week from today, and they do the American Dairy Rookie Luncheon every year, and they bring the rookies in and they milk a cow, and everybody gets a milkshake, and they bring the rookies up. Fernando Alonso didn't do it. They sent him to New York, I believe. Jimmy Johnson didn't do it. They sent him elsewhere. But Kyle Larson was there. Kyle Larson could have said, you know what? This is probably going to be my only day off for a long time. I want to take my kids to the Indianapolis Zoo, or I want to take my kid to the Children's Museum and just totally disconnect. And he didn't. He was there. He was there. He was answering questions. He did interviews. He talked to me. He milked a cow. So he really embraced everything throughout the entire month of May. And you can't really ask for anything more out of a guy that, look, at the end of the day, he's a dirt track racer, man. I mean, it doesn't matter what car makes him a living. He's a dirt track guy. Indy's always been one of his goals. His dad loves the Indianapolis 500. His dad, he said, got to meet Mario Andretti on the grid, which was his hero growing up. So it's a 2-year deal, so I don't see why we wouldn't see Kyle Larson back in the 2025 Indy 500.
Yeah, my takeaway from Kyle Larson's experience here in Indy is pretty much the same. He was a fantastic ambassador for the race and for NASCAR. I do think he in that statement that he released, he was a little hard on himself, and I would imagine that would just be because he felt that he let everyone down by not being able to do the 1,100 miles. But even if the race would have gone on and he would have gotten down to Charlotte, he wouldn't have been able to get the whole 1,100 miles in. But he's a fantastic competitor. He just needs to lighten up on himself. He made one mistake where and he had talked about that all month long, thinking that he was going to have problems with the pit speed, and it bit him in the butt. But that happens to probably almost every driver that's ever done IndyCar in some capacity, trying to stop your car from going 200 miles an hour down to a pit lane to a pit lane speed and not screwing up is a hard thing to do. But I look forward to seeing Kyle Larson again next year. Hopefully he can, like Tony said, he's a 2-year deal. He should be back next year, and hopefully next year is a better experience for him. I mean, he was the rookie of the year for the Indy 500. So I mean, that's not many people can say that. There's only a handful of people that can say that. So kudos to Kyle Larson and all his hard work, and hopefully we see him next year.
Yeah, definitely agree. A lot of experience learned, and those mistakes that he made as a rookie, I can about bet your bottom dollar that Kyle Larson will learn from them, and he won't make them again next year. Next takeaway that I have, I know we talked about this guy a little bit ago, but huge kudos to Connor Daly being named the biggest mover of the race, starting at 29th, and he was able to give Dreyer and Reinbold and Cusack Motorsports a top 10 finish. And then, as Tony alluded to in the opening there, Connor was also at the front for about 22 laps. So huge congratulations goes out to everyone involved with that racing team, because who would have thought, going into the race on Sunday, that Dreyer Reinbold would get not one but two cars into the show, and people like in Andretti Global would struggle to get all of their cars in. So huge kudos there, and the steps that Dreyer Reinbold Racing along with the Cusick Motorsports there, Tony and Josh, are taking to maybe become potential long-term players here with the NTT IndyCar Series.
Yeah, it's hard to do as a one-off effort, right? This is a team that has full-time employees that works on pit stops 365 days out of the year. I think it's a great fit for Connor. Hopefully there's a chance to maybe run some more races, maybe at Nashville, where you're going to have a big super speedway package like this to where it gets to be a really good race that kind of, narrows that gap from the field. The strategy was played right there, and then staying out on one of the fuel stints. And, shout out to Stingray Rob as well, a guy that nobody thought would lead a lap, that nobody thought, I wouldn't say be in contention, but would find himself up at the front. And he did it a few times. Obviously, he was on an off strategy, a different strategy than what some were on, but he ran all 500 miles as well. So hopefully we see Connor Daly back in a car this year, which I think we will. I don't know where, and I don't know what team, but as we saw this time last year when all the musical chairs started happening and Connor was fired, and then Jack Harvey was fired, and then the unfortunate crash with Simon Pagenaud, who I happened to run into on Friday and give a big hug to. Things will happen. We know that in racing. So yeah, it was good to see Connor up towards the front, and bringing a new sponsor to the Speedway, bringing a new sponsor to IMS. Hopefully, Polka Dot will be back soon as well.
Yep, couldn't have said it better myself. I mean, everything that Tony said is exactly true. Hopefully, Connor can catch on with a ride somewhere later on in the year. But hoping best for Connor.
Yeah, absolutely. Love to see that kid succeed. Like, I don't know if you can call him a kid, but good to see that man succeed. And like Tony said, hopefully he'll be able to find a ride to either the end of the remaining this year or a full time in 2025. Now, this story again, you guys know me very well. I am, putting my bias aside, but a huge Pato Award, Arrow McLaren fan. And this just, everybody, all three of us on this panel here, know what it's like when there's something that you want to do and you become oh so close to doing it, but you try to go reach for that brass ring, and you're just quite out of your reach. And that's what happened to Pato Award on Sunday. I mean, I don't know what else the man could do. He drove a perfect race, took the lead on the most important lap, but as he would say, he come up just 2 corners short. He did everything he could going down that backstretch into turn 3 to try to break the momentum and draft of Joseph Newgarden. But again, as 2 of the last 3 years, it just wasn't enough, where Pato ends up, again, the bridesmaid, as we like to say, in second place. And, we all seen how emotional Pato Award was, and we'll have a video clip of that if you didn't see it. But I feel for the dude. I absolutely feel for the dude because he has worked well. All the drivers work their tail off, but Pato especially. He is garnering a lot of attention and a lot of fans to IndyCar, and just to come up 2 corners short, man. That's the equivalent, I think, to a swift kick in the nuts.
Well, and you think of Pato's body of work at the Indianapolis 500, and then recently as well. Look, this is a guy that last year with 8 laps to go went forward on Marcus Ericsson, didn't really hit the corner, ends up in the fence. 2 years ago, tried to make a pass to win the race, didn't work out, has to finish second. He's been so dang close to winning this race. Remember 2 years ago with Marcus Ericsson, he was going into 1 on the outside, couldn't make the move. Was up there, I think, finished third to Helio Castroneves. He's probably the second best oval racer we have right now in IndyCar, behind Joseph Newgarden, which isn't a knock at all. I mean, Joseph Newgarden's doing historic stuff, winning 9 of the last 12 ovals. I mean, I think we need to sit down and really appreciate. We appreciate what Scott Dixon is doing still, but what Joseph Newgarden is doing at the age of 32 is just, it's beyond this world. But back to Pato, I thought he made the right move. I really did. I sat in turn 3, hadn't seen a pass for the lead in turn 3 all day, to do it around the outside. I mean, I thought Pato did everything possible. And I think we'll see an angry, a heated Pato ready to win this weekend in Detroit. This is a guy who hasn't won a race in 3 years, besides the one that was given to him in St. Pete, which he will tell you, look, don't really care about that. I want to drive into Victory Circle and be able to celebrate with my team. This is a guy who's really good at Detroit. I think he's your favorite coming up this weekend in downtown Detroit, Josh.
Oh, yeah, definitely. I can't wait to see what he does this weekend, and just to hear the emotion in his voice whenever he got out of that car, I mean, shows how much this race means for him. And my advice to him is just keep going. I mean, of course, my advice doesn't really matter to him, but just keep going. I mean, it took Newgarden over 10 tries to be able to win his first one, and now he's a back-to-back winner. First back-to-back winner since Helio Castroneves back in the early 2000s. So he's a bright young man. He's got a bright future ahead of him. Arrow hasn't had too much success outside of that technical win that it was handed to him over the last couple years. But this was a bright spot this week for him. He didn't do anything wrong. He just was going up against a driver that was experienced, that pulled almost that same move last year to win his first one. So all kudos in the world goes to Pato. He just never stops. And I know a lot of people don't. I know it was brought up on the broadcast, but he also had the whole country of Mexico behind him, because he was trying to become the very first Mexican driver to ever win the Indianapolis 500, and he came up just short. So sooner or later, he's going to be able to take trade that bridesmaid's dress in for a wedding dress one day.
Yeah, and I hope that's sooner rather than later. But if you did not catch Pato's interview right out of his car, I got a little bit of snippet of it. I will tell you, obviously, if there's kids around, you probably want to hold their ears for just a second. But you can't blame the guy for the language that he used, and this is the emotion of Indianapolis and somebody that has the fire like Pato Award does to win this race.
We had so many near race enders, and just so close again. So fucking close. It's just
Yeah. Well, I mean, what more can you say? It's just this is the passion of wanting to win at Indy. Just having the will to want to win in general. You see it right there in his face, and it was tough, I think, for him, obviously, to hold in that emotion, because like you said, Tony, the last last 3 years, Pato has been oh so close twice, and then being too aggressive last year, putting his number 5 into the wall. So he's right there. He knows what it takes to do it. It's just getting over that hump. This is the one thing Pato just hasn't quite figured out yet. But I truly believe, just like I do with Alex Palou, I think both of their times coming. They're both young and elite drivers in this series, and I think both of them are going to walk away when it's all said and done with at least one Indianapolis 500 championship, maybe multiples. But speaking of multiples, what else can we say? Joseph Newgarden, what else can we say? Love him or hate him. I know the crowd reaction, Tony, I know you were in the crowd, was kind of mixed there on Sunday when Joseph was the first car to cross the finish line. It took him 12 years to win his first one, and now he's a back-to-back champion. I would also imagine that his wallet there is a little bit heavier after Sunday as well. And then I don't know if you guys know this. Tony, you probably do. Josh, you may have seen this on social media, but with Joseph Newgarden's win on Sunday, he joins an elite group of IndyCar drivers with at least 30 wins, 2 Indianapolis 500 championships, and 2 series championships. The only ones to do that, listen to these names: AJ Foyt, Al Unser Sr., Bobby Unser, Al Unser Jr., and then someone that was in the attendance on Sunday, Dario Franchitti.
Yeah, I mean, it's elite level status for Joseph Newgarden right now. And when you think about the drivers that you just mentioned, AJ Foyt continued on for 15 years after his 4th Indianapolis 500 win, drove to the age of like 60, if I'm not mistaken. Al Unser Jr. wins his 2nd 500 in 1994. He was at the age of 32. Obviously, the split and what happened in 1995 took away any more opportunities for him to win. Joseph Newgarden has done this, and he's 32 years old. And when you look at the sport right now, you still have a competitive Helio Castroneves at the 500. You still have a competitive Takuma Sato at the Indianapolis 500. You still have 43-year-old Scott Dixon winning races. It's Will Powers in his early 40s still contending for championships. Joseph, unless some kind of Sam Hornish Jr. crap happens where he gets pulled away and taken to NASCAR, which I hope doesn't happen. This dude's got a chance to go for 4. He's got a chance to go for 5. He's 2 for 13, which means at 32 years old, if he races the 45 where Scott Dixon is right now and Elio, I think Elio's 48, if he could easily go 4 for 26. That would not be out of the realm of possibilities. And that's erring on the side of caution. If I die in 40 years and Joseph Newgarden has 5 Indianapolis 500 wins, I would not be surprised.
Oh, definitely. I was thinking the same thing. He could be the next one to try to go to get that drive for 5 going. I mean, I know we're a little premature, but he's well on his way. And Derek talking about his wallet being a little bit fatter, along with his paycheck that he got for winning. He also won that I believe it was $440,000 that Borg Warner had out there for a back-to-back winner that we had not had since I think it was 2001 with Castroneves. So he's an elite level driver. I'd find it hard to bet against him in any oval race. He just seems to love those ovals and thrive on them. So congratulations to Newgarden, and keep up the good work, and let's see if we can get a 5-time winner by the time he retires.
And I know Mike's ready.
Yeah, I think Tony's right. That was something I thought about on my wait in the media lot there on Sunday. Is how many times could Joseph Newgarden do this? Could he be the next one to go 4? Would he be the first one to go 5? So, yeah, we're thinking on the same wavelength there, Tony. I know you have to run. Anything else you want to add to this before you get on out of here? I know it'll be nice to catch up again this coming weekend in Detroit. I know me and Josh will get there Saturday afternoon, early evening. But anything else you want to add before you have to run?
I think Mike will tell you. I think Mike's coming up here to talk about the betting angle of it. Joseph Newgarden makes betting IndyCar oval races not fun at all, because you try to get some bigger numbers on some other drivers. And Newgarden's won 9 of the last 12 on ovals. Scott Dixon has won, 4 out of the last 7 races total. Alex Palou is always inside of the top 5. So we'll see what happens in Detroit. I think Mike and I are going to hop on a podcast later on this week. We've got some pretty good hits on our podcast last week, discussing, breaking down what it was like. I know Mike always bets the under of the car number and the other under of the starting position. So I think Mike made out a little bit. I think the only bet that I hit on the race was, which happened to be my biggest bet, which was fine, was Alexander Rossi to finish top 5 at plus 200. So I'll take that one to Detroit with me.
Good stuff, Tony. Again, huge thank you as always for giving us a little bit of your time and hopping on here. And we'll see you in a couple days in Detroit.
All right, thanks, guys. Tell my boy Mike I said hello.
All right, and that was Tony Donohue. Good stuff there. Always love having him on. And now we have the other half, maybe the better half of this dynamic duo here. But Mike, our betting expert, and Mike, I still see you're living in your house, so you didn't score that beach house in Miami yet. But I got to think with your betting expertise there, you got to be getting awful close.
Well, I might have had a beach house if Pato O'Ward would have won the damn race. That would have been. It was a hell of a sweat, man. I guess I could start with the good. The good was for the betting purposes. Man, it was great to have all these props and all the top 5s and top 10s available to us throughout most of the week, and even the couple of weeks leading up to the 500. And the props is I did well in the props. I had the grid prop hit again. If you bet under 5.5 grid starting spot, under 8.5 grid starting prop, my favorite little bet, Newgarden was inside of that, so that was a win. Also bet car number under 9.5 to win the race. So that was a hit as well. Would have been no matter who won. And the biggest bet that we made was more than 4.5 cautions. And I was done winning. I was ready to. That bet won in like 26 laps. That was spectacular. And that bet was predicated on some rain happening. And that was something that I kind of got clued into a little later in the week. I don't think I was able to talk about it on your podcast because it wasn't posted yet. But that was an easy one. We were thinking it'd be because of rain cautions. But no, these drivers just put it in the wall. So that was great. So that was all good. As far as I was not on Joseph. I did have some cross par. I had some F1 bets. I had both Ferrari cars to get to podium or to get classified, and Joseph to finish top 3. So I cashed that. That was just a little side bet. But most of my money was on Power and Pato to win the race. And I was feeling good, man. I was like really psyched, and I was nervous that Pato made the move too early. I know you guys probably talked about the race and everything that went down. My take on it is I wish Pato would have just not swerved coming out of turn 2 on the backstretch. And instead, if I were him, I just would have blocked twice, and I would have made IndyCar like call penalty and make me lose on a penalty. I don't know if they would have done that. So I just would have, if I were him, I would have blocked twice, and then I would have made Joseph go around the outside, and then I would have just stretched it to the finish, maybe side by side, and see what happens. But yeah, it wasn't to be. It was a huge sweat. There were some curse words coming out of my mouth. I was at my parents' house. I'd be careful. but they both knew it was on Pato, and my mother didn't care. She had bet the 2 other Penske cars on my advice, so she wasn't happy with me either. But yeah, man, still cashed a couple of good bets. Had a bunch of the top 5 bets. It would have been nice for Kirkwood to stick in the top 5. That was a big bet. Dixon top 5 hit. That was a bet I was touting a bunch. So yeah, man, it was a break-even race with all that said and done. However, if Pato would have won, that would have been a lot of money, which would have been great because I was all over him. But I did have Pato top 3. As I always tell people, if you're going to bet the winner, you should also bet some top 3 as well. So it was a fun race to bet. I got a ton of interaction on Twitter. Hopefully we got some more people excited about the race, some more people betting. I saw a lot more people talking about it. So that's all good. That's the whole point. Like, get more people following the race, from the betting angle of things. So, and you guys make any money?
I made money by working the track and doing all kinds of security, but I didn't bet anything. So all my money is going to the Detroit trip this weekend.
And you can bet it on somebody there.
Mike,
yeah.
if I was going to bet, I would have put it on Kyle Larson, and I was feeling really good until he Scott Dixoned himself there and sped in the pits, and then I said, well, good thing I didn't bet any money because I might as well just send it to Mike like he asked. But yeah, I was feeling really good just watching Kyle Larson. I know he made an early mistake there of when he not shifting properly, and I'm like, well, crap. And then he just slowly worked his way back up. And then when he Dixied himself in the pits, I said, well, that's probably the end of that.
Yeah, look, Larson, like exactly what I thought would happen with Larson happened. I thought he'd get rookied like everybody else does. Like even McLaughlin talked about, like, even I think he's raced the race 2-3 times now. Like, he still has so much to learn, he said. And he even if Larson was there at the end, I think he would get, he would get Newgarden, kind of get eaten up. Like, somebody would set him up. He wouldn't know exactly how to handle it, at the end. And I thought he'd make a mistake. He spun the wheels once. That was a big rookie mistake. The speeding, rookie mistake. I thought something could have happened on pit entry, pit exit. So exactly what I thought would happen to Larson. Look, he'll give me pause next year. Yeah, I think he's coming back next year. If that's definitely something to keep an eye out for. I'd definitely be all over the McLaren cars again next year. For sure. It's definitely like a Penske McLaren Ganassi race. Like, I'm not even gonna bother betting Andretti cars or Ray Hall cars, or I know Ferrucci was putting up a fight there, but in the end his car just went away. So and even when he was super happy with it. So yeah, I think that's the way we're going to bet that race. And you want to be the guy in second place coming out of turn 2, apparently.
Yeah, obviously that's the lead dog position that you want to be in. But you touched on something that I made a point of. If Kyle Larson does decide to come back and attempt to complete the double again next year, with all the experience and seat time that he gained throughout the month, I know this is long term, but from the betting aspect of this, would he be one of the favorites going into next year's 500 if he decides to do it?
Yeah, he was already one of the favorites going into this race as a rookie because of his popularity and the crossover NASCAR bettors coming in to bet him. So, your favorites are going to be Joseph and him, maybe Joseph first, him second, but like those will be the two favorites, and that's fine with me. Like, let those guys have some numbers. I'll bet other people. I'll bet my Pato bet. And then we'll find bets for top 3s and top 5s if we're nervous about them. But yeah, Joseph and Kyle, man, I bet you we should probably get any 500 odds for next year coming out pretty soon. So as soon as I see them, I'll post them, or I'll talk about them on the podcast here, and we'll see. But Larson is definitely going to be either the co-favorite or just right behind Joseph.
All right, Mike, last thing that I have, I know, Tony touched on this right before he took off Detroit this weekend. I know you've probably, exhaled a little bit from the 500. Hopefully you've had time to do a little bit of research. Anything that you can give us here, or do we need to wait for X's later in the week on odds for Detroit this weekend?
Yeah, so I haven't looked at anything this week just yet, but I have my notes, obviously, that I keep spreadsheets and all this stuff. So, obviously this was a race we hit a winner on last year. It was Power, right? You can correct me if I'm wrong, but yeah, that's where, Power's been Power top 3. I think he's going to get right back to doing what he does. One of the bets I did make was Power to win the championship, thinking that he would have a good 500. Kind of weird that he crashed out there. I haven't read too much about that. I saw he posted something, but I haven't read it yet or listened to it. But so, going to go right back to looking at the Penske cars. They've been dominant on all the tracks so far. So, we're probably back to the same old IndyCar betting we've been getting before. Well, we won't get odds till Saturday or Sunday. I'm hoping we get some Saturday because I'll be out of the country on Sunday. But yeah, so we'll see what happens. But Power's gonna. I don't think Power will be the favorite. Joseph will be the favorite. I don't think that's probably right. I think it should go right back to Power, and I'll be right back on looking for Pato top threes as well.
Yeah, I see. Pretty coincidental there, Mike, that you're taking the money and running as you got it last weekend. Now you're going on vacation. Just kidding, but yeah, good stuff, Mike. I know Tony mentioned you guys will have a show or spaces later this week or closer to more odds being released. I can't wait to hear about that. But anything else you want to add, either about the 500 last weekend or Detroit coming up this weekend?
Yeah, look, I mean, Detroit also, it's a new track, right? So don't forget that. So we're not going to have, you're going to have to, the sourcebooks don't know that. Maybe they do, maybe they don't. My guess is they don't. So, as soon as we get information coming out of practice, you might be able to get some good bets and some good long shots. So the second we see some practice results, that's where you're going to want to kind of jump on stuff. And the second they release those odds, maybe pre-quals. So I might bet a little bit more pre-quals on a new track. I remember back when Nashville was a new track and Herta was just blitzing people. We got Herta at a really good number. Now, he didn't win the race. That was the race that Ericsson flew in the air and came backwards. That was just shenanigans. Herta should have won that race. But we got the value. And I think if you keep doing that, you'll eventually hit big bets. So keep an eye out on practice results. And if you pay attention to IndyCar, you know more than the sportsbook. So keep an eye on your betting numbers, and then follow me, Tony, Push Pass, all that stuff, and we'll get it out there.
Mike, good stuff as always. Stay safe, and we will hear from you in 1 week's time to see how you did and everyone else did going into Detroit next weekend. Talk to you later.
All right, guys, take care. Have fun.
You too. Thank you.
Good stuff as always there from Mike. Go check him out on Twitter, and then the spaces that him and Tony do as well. Two great people to get betting advice from. Definitely know their stuff there for sure. Josh, we'll get back to the 500 here shortly. I know we need to go over some results and then the newest point standings, and maybe we'll dabble our toe into Detroit a little bit and preview that here before we get on out of here. But first and foremost, we need to thank a few sponsors that make it possible for us to bring you this show on a week out basis. And first and foremost, a huge thank you to Always Ready 1776 for all your patriotic apparel, headwear, and more. Go check out Always Ready 1776, and you can find them on the web at alwaysready1776.com. And if you do head on over there and you do happen to find something that tickles your fancy, as the cool kids like to say, make sure you use that promo code that you see up on your screen there, Push to Pass, for 10% off of your order. Also, too, huge thank you to Gettum Associates for all your home design, build, and remodeling needs. Remember, it's Gettum Associates, and you can find them on the web at gettum.com. And if you go and browse their selection of designs for your home or remodeling needs, and you do find one and pick out one that you want to use, remember to use that promo code you see down there at the bottom, Push to Pass, for $250 off any design service. Huge thank you both to Always Ready 1776 and Gettum Associates for being proud sponsors of the Push to Pass podcast. Getting back, Josh, to wrapping up what was a exciting and thrilling, even though we had to wait 4 hours for it, race at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. Unfortunately, we're 360 some days away from the next one, but we're still talking about the one that took place there on Sunday. Let's take a look at the final final results of the race on Sunday. If you didn't catch it, obviously your winner, Joseph Newgarden, followed by Pato Award, Scott Dixon, Alexander Rossi, and Alex Palou round out your top five. Then it's Scott McLaughlin, Kyle Kirkwood, Santino Ferrucci, Renus VK, and the hometown guy, Connor Daly, rounding out your top 10. Then it's Callum Eilott, Christian Rasmussen, Christian Lundgaard, Takuma Sato, and Graham Rahal round out your top 15. 16th, Josh's favorite there, Stingray Robb. And then it's Ed Carpenter, Kyle Larson, Roman Grosjean, and Elio Castroneves, who was the drive for 5, unfortunately comes up a little short there in 20th. Then it's Kiffin Simpson, Augustine Canapino, Colton Herta, Will Power, Marco Andretti, Ryan Hunter-Ray, Felix Rosenquist, Lunas Lundquist, Catherine Legg, and Marcus Armstrong, round out your top 30. And then the last three, Tom Bloomquist, Pietro Fittipaldi, and Marcus Ericsson round out your field of 33. Josh, anyone on there that you were surprised where they finished at, shocked where they were finished at, or kudos to maybe making the top 5 or top 10?
I mean, obviously for me, my favorite driver is Stingray Robb. So to see him up there leading laps in the Indy 500, this was only his. I would say this was only his second. This was his second one, and to be leading laps, to be a sophomore and be up there leading laps the way he did. I know he ended up finishing back in 16th, but to show that he was able to get out there, and it may have had a little bit to do with his pit strategy. Him and a couple other drivers, I believe Connor Daly, were on different pit strategies than a lot of other people, so that allowed him to get out there. But he showed some great promise that I knew he had in him, and just be able to say that he actually led the Indianapolis 500. Not under caution, but under but under actual driving conditions. That's something he can build on and move forward in with the rest of his career and the rest of this year. Other than that, it's disappointing not seeing Helio not being able to be up there and compete really for that drive for 5. I know he's putting everything he's got into it. It's just not. It just didn't fall his way. Takuma Sato out there once again doing a one-off. Still out there trying to pick up his third 500. Always a great thing to see the Japanese driver out there. I know he brings in a large crowd of the Japanese or the Asian fans. So that's always a good thing. More eyes put on the circuit. So it was a hell of a weekend. Starting out with Carb Day and the pit stops challenge. That was the first round had Juncos Hollinger, the blind draw, the two drivers going against each other. And I called that first one. I will say the Juncos Hollinger Racing people that we were standing with had the other driver's pit winning, but then you go on to the parade, which I know you and your lovely daughter and some of our other close friends were at. I was sitting in turn 3 waiting to do nothing that day, working, and then the whole pageantry and everything that went into the 500 on Sunday, between Doug Bowles and the entire staff getting people out of the stands before any lightning or rain came, to being able to get that race in the window that they had, and make one hell of a race. They may have had to cut some of the pageantry short. I know they wanted to do some more stuff, but they got it in, and it was a fantastic race. A lot of cautions. I think that might have had to do with maybe some moisture still being on the track, and the track not being as hot, as some would expect. So some of those drivers lost control a little bit, and we had the first lap caution of the 3 drivers that got into each other. But Joseph Newgarden going back to back, he's a villain to some, he's a hero to others, but you can't deny that he is now a 2-time back-to-back winner of the Indianapolis 500. And then, as we talked about earlier, the emotion that Pato Pato O'Ward showed right after he got out of that car. Sometimes I think that the media should have to stand off for about 5 minutes, just to let the drivers get out and compose themselves. It seems like the drivers, right as they get out, there's a microphone stuck in their face, and they've got to come up with something to say. And at that time, with what Pato had just gone through, being two turns away from winning his first 500. And it being taken away from him by a fantastic move by Newgarden, that had to have been tough on him. So we're on to Detroit. This will close the chapter on this year's 500. We will be looking forward to the 109th running next year, and how that brings it. But we still have a whole rest of the season to go, and more races to attend and more races to review.
Yeah, absolutely. And you talk about the pit stop challenge and the two Hukos Hollinger racing machines going up against each other. Hat tip to Sarah Levinson of that amazing crew over there at Hukos Hollinger Racing, because she's the one that pointed it out. She goes, "Hey, look at this next matchup," and we're waiting for it to come up on the board. And as Josh pointed out there, a quote unquote blind draw. And you have the 77 and 78 teams going against each other. Blind draw. Okay. Yeah, whatever. But before we get to Detroit, though, we do have one more thing to touch on here, and it is the up-to-date point standings as they sit. Your leader, Alex Palou, followed by Scott Dixon, Will Power, Pato O'Ward, and Colton Herter round out your top 5. Then it's Scott McLaughlin, it was race winner on Sunday, Joseph Newgarden, Alexander Rossi, Felix Rosenquist, and Kyle Kirkwood round out your top 10. Then Christian Lundgaard, Santino Ferrucci, Renus VK, Graham Rahal, Marcus Ericsson, Roman Grosjean, Lunas Lundquist, Kiffin Simpson, Marcus Ericsson, and Augustine Canapino round out your top 20. Then it's Christian Rasmussen, followed by Pietro Fittipaldi, and then it is Jack Harvey, Tom Bloomquist, and Stingray Robb are your top 25. So that is your look at the up-to-date point standings. As for picks for this past weekend, I did put them out. I didn't have enough time to get the graphic done, but unfortunately, me and Josh were thinking on the same wavelength, and we both went with Kyle Larson, and obviously, neither one of us are going to get a point for that. So we'll move on to Detroit next week and see if someone can pick up another race point there as they march towards the Invisible Points Championship here on the Push to Pass podcast. But as Josh said, that does close the book on the Indianapolis 500. I want to thank huge thank you out to everyone that is involved out at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. All of the hospitality and welcomeness that they showed, not only myself, but Josh, all the times that we were out there this month. Definitely can't wait to get back out there. And, Susie Elliott and her amazing crew out there at the media center. Can't say enough kind things, can't say enough kind words for the job that her staff does, welcoming everybody and making sure they are that their needs, if they can be taken care of, are taken care of for sure. But again, we are going to Detroit next weekend. Me and Josh will arrive in Detroit on Saturday. But this is what we're looking at here for the 2014 Chevrolet Detroit Grand Prix presented by Lear. This will be the second year that this Grand Prix is being raced through the streets of downtown Detroit. The era of the Detroit Grand Prix continues as the event, as I said, returns to the streets of downtown Detroit starting Friday, May 31st, and then the race on Sunday, June 2nd. The new Grand Prix will feature 3 full days of activities and celebration on some of Detroit's most popular and active downtown areas, including racing on a new 1.645 mile 9-turn street circuit along Jefferson Avenue, Bates Street, Atwater Street, St. Anton, and Franklin Streets, respectively. I know we were there last year for the inaugural Grand Prix of Detroit when it was in the streets of Detroit. Obviously used to be on Belle Isle, but it has moved closer to downtown there, and it goes right around, as you see right there, the GM Renaissance building there, obviously the title sponsor of this race. Josh, this will be the first time that you are attending the race in Detroit, but just looking at the map layout here real quick, anything that you can that you see that you'd be interested in watching there, practice on Friday, Saturday, and then the race on Sunday? You may want to unmute yourself.
Sorry. The truck looks like an interesting layout, 9 turns. It'll be interesting to see where where they have us stationed and what we can view. The streets of Detroit. I know a lot of people, when you say Detroit, they go, "Oh my God, you're gonna be mugged." But I can attest. I've been on the streets of downtown Detroit. Now, if you're going to the outskirts of Detroit, yeah, you may be a little sketchy. But the downtown Detroit, with the Ilyich family and the Ford family, that both own the Lions and the Red Wings and the Tigers, respectively, around that area. They've done a lot to renovate and revamp that downtown. So it's getting better and better, and the aesthetics and everything is going to be really great for this race, as they were last year. And hopefully we have a big crowd that comes out.
I can tell you that the media center is up there in the GM Renaissance building, which on that map right there, I know it's probably tough to see. It's the building there. It looks like it's in the shape of an X, and that runs right there by the start-finish line. And you look right across there, Josh, and I'll tell you a quick story. When I was up in that media center last year, I failed to realize how close Detroit was to Canada, because I looked out the window and I was like, hey, look, there's Canada right across the river there. So yeah, I was pretty a bliss to knowing that Detroit was so close to Windsor, Canada. I know I'm gonna have to keep you away from Caesars there right across the river, because you'll end up getting lost there, and we'll have another version of The Hangover. But here's the race schedule here this weekend. Obviously, everything's going to get kicked off on Friday. First practice there, 3 p.m. And then Saturday is when things start to ramp up, as you see. Practice 2 at 9:10 p.m. All these are local times there in Detroit, and Detroit is in the Eastern time zone. For those of you that don't know or need a refresher. And then after the practice there, we're going to have first round qualifying at 12:15 for Group 1, and then first round qualifying for Group 2 immediately following that at 12:40 p.m. And then second round of qualifying is going to take place approximately at 1:05 p.m. And then that Firestone Fast 6 to see who is going to grab the pole for Sunday's Chevrolet Detroit Grand Prix is going to take place about 1:30. And then the track will obviously temper down there a little bit as we roll into Sunday. Early wake-up call for myself along with Josh around 9:30 when the warm-up there, a half an hour warm-up, and then things get started there around 12:30 there on Sunday with the Chevrolet Detroit Grand Prix. And I do believe a programming note, people that are going to tune in to watch the race, the NTT IndyCar Series race on Sunday. Remember that this race is going to be televised on national TV on the USA Network. You also can see it on Peacock. But if you do what I do And what I like to do is I'll turn down the TV sound of either NBC or USA Network or Peacock, and I'll flip on Mark James and the crew over there on IndyCar Radio. Check that out as well, IndyCar Radio online, or if you have Sirius XM and you can find IndyCar Radio there as well. So we got you covered on the TV side of things and also on the radio side of things as well. Josh, before we drop the checker flag on another episode here of the Push to Pass podcast, I know we've touched on a lot of things this evening, a lot going on as the IndyCar series starts to heat up here after Indianapolis. Anything that you would like to add or comment on or talk about here before that checkered flag drops?
This is just on a side note. I want to thank my co-host Derek. He does a phenomenal job of putting this podcast together. He puts hours and hours in. He was out at the track a lot more than I was this past May. So I want to say thank you to you, Derek, for all the hard work you put into this and making sure that this podcast goes on as it is. I know I've had a couple weeks where I haven't been here, and you've kept it going and found other co-hosts, guest co-hosts. So I just want to send kudos out to you, and I can't wait to go to Detroit with you this weekend and experience this race and see how it does.
Thank you for your kind words, and the check is in the mail, Josh, for sure. Before we get out, though, I forgot I did add another video. If you were unable to watch the race on NBC or Peacock, and you weren't able to attend it in person, IndyCar earlier today on their X or Twitter account, whatever one you want to use at this point in time, put out an amazing video of the flyover from the view of one of the pilots from those Thunderbirds that did that amazing flyover there on Sunday. I want to play that real quick, and then we'll get to the show closer, and I promise then we'll get out of here. But let's check out this video that the NTT IndyCar Series put out here of the view from the cockpit of the Thunderbirds that flew over this weekend.
Derek, I don't know if you're muted or not, but I can't hear you. I couldn't hear you if you were. I couldn't hear what you said, Derek. I don't know. Is it my end or yours?
Maybe it's my end, but just talking about the flyover practice there on Friday from Carb Day, that we were both in the media center there outside on the third deck, and I think we both had to go check our pants there after that flyover.
Oh, definitely. I mean that video was loud, but if you're on the outside, and when they did the flyover for the national anthem, it was spectacular. But when they were when they came back and they all peeled off, after, I think it was for back home again in Indiana, when they peeled off, and if you're standing in the media center, and even when you're just anywhere in the facility, it is so loud that yes, you do have to go check and make sure that you didn't tinkle a little bit in your pants, because that is by far one of the loudest things I have ever heard. Those jet engines going overhead.
I think this is what you're referring to. Let me see if I can get this to play here real quick.
Oh yeah, that right there doesn't know justice, but you can almost hear it. I mean, just imagine that being right over your head and those jet engines just scaring the living daylights out of you.
Yeah, no doubt for sure. We both had to make sure our hearts were still beating there after that. But with all of that being said, and all of the festivities and pageantry that was the Indianapolis 500, the rain couldn't stop us. We got everything in, got the whole race in, and looking forward, like Josh said, to next year, 300 and some days away from now. Huge thank you first and foremost to Josh for being able to join us. Look forward to heading to Detroit this weekend to cover and do something that we both really enjoy, and that is covering the NTT IndyCar Series. Also, huge thank you to Tony Donohue for jumping on here for a few minutes and giving us his thoughts and opinions on what we witnessed this past weekend at the Indianapolis 500. And then, as always, a huge thank you to Mike as well for his betting expertise, knowledge, and information to make us all better bettors and hopefully better bettors, and hopefully make our pocketbooks there a little bigger as we go into another race weekend. So for myself and Josh and everyone else here that makes up the Push to Pass podcast, we say so long for now, but we will be together again in 1 week's time when we talk about what we witnessed and what we've seen in Detroit, in the streets of Detroit, for the Chevrolet Detroit Grand Prix presented by Lear. So until then, so long, everybody.
5-4, momentum to you. We smoked him today. Oh my God, unbelievable! Yeah! That's awesome. That's awesome. What a free-for-all race. Good job.